Now, here's the struggle that you're going to have with it, because
Mm.
a large part of why it was so much fun was because that was the first time in your life that you'd done 6 weeks worth of non-stop coaching calls, right?
Yes.
So, so a large percentage of the reason why you were in flow during that time was because it was all so new. Now, the trouble is, you know what Sam says, pick your niche and do it again and
Yeah.
again and again until you master it. So
Mm.
at some point, there's a honeymoon period that ends, and
Yeah.
we start dropping out of the flow high that we got at the beginning, and then it
Mm.
starts to become a bit routine, and then we start questioning, am I in the right niche? In my perspective,
Mm.
overthinking, over worrying is a consequence of not being in flow more. And so rather than trying to reduce the overthinking, what I do is I try and focus on getting into flow more. And as you said, there's two things that influence whether you're in flow. One is being on the precipice of a new challenge.
Mm.
You've got to find a way to make those calls more challenging for yourself.
Yes.
And that relates to the second thing, which is that you get into flow easier when you're teaching other people how to do something that you have only just learned very quickly so that you can teach it to them. So within your arsenal, there's a lot of things that you have that you can teach these people.
Mm.
But in order to get flow in it, you've got to figure out what's the thing that they need that you've only just learned or don't know yet, that you need to now go away and learn, so that when you're teaching it to them, it requires you to be in flow. Now, that puts you into the flow, and then you're in a better position to teach them the rest of the things. And you've got more bandwidth because it's starting to become automatic. You've got more bandwidth to improve on the selling part.
Yeah.
And at the moment, you've got a bit of resistance to, probably because you haven't done it frequently enough. I can tell you that from my own experience, when I've felt like I'm struggling to get coaching clients, it's usually because I'm struggling to become a coaching client for someone else. And and maybe it's at the price point that I'm looking at. So maybe I'm trying to sell a program for 3,000, but I've never spent more than 1,000 on a program. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I'm just writing this down because it's an interesting idea. And
number one, on a spiritual level, because before you can receive something, you have to give it. And so if you're asking for a $3,000 coaching program, you've got to send that somewhere before it will come back to you seriously. The first $3,000 sale I made was also with someone from the consulting community. It's funny that we both got our first client from within the actual community of learning. And it was because I had spent that amount on Sam. I hadn't spent more than that on a program before. And when I was trying to sell it at that level, there was just this spiritual disconnect for me where I felt like I was asking for more than I've given, you see? And then the big challenge becomes, who do I spend that money on? Especially in the early days, like if I'm thinking, okay, so I need to spend 10 grand on something now before I ask for 10 grand on something, who do I send that 10 grand to? And then that's the question, because it's like, you've got to find the coach that resonates, and you've got to find the problem that they're going to help you solve. And usually by the end of that conversation of their strategy call, where the purpose is for them to pitch to me, by the end of it, I point out to them that their consciousness is not where it needs to be, and their ego is a bit too big, and then I flip it around, and then all of a sudden it's my strategy session for them. You know what I mean? And I'm like, so this isn't my new coach. I can't be sending them my money. Do you know what I mean? Let me settle your mind. That's good. That's why it's happening. You see, it's happening this weekend because it literally is not giving you the space to think about it. Because if you spent the next few days thinking about it, you wouldn't deliver the best you than if you just put it up. And why? Because of flow. Because what happens when you try and think about it more is that you make it easier in your mind. You make yourself believe that it's easier than it is. And then when you're doing it, you're trying to act out the planned version of it that you think. So you're busy trying to do that, but it's different to what you think. It's harder than what you think. But because you've got such a mapped out plan up here, you just dip back and forth from it rather than being in the here and now and dealing with the challenge of the moment, you see?
Yeah.
So because the reason it's happening this weekend, and this is a big part of what my kind of work is looking for the meaning in everyday events. Like why, when I took a door-to-door sales job, the patch that I had, all the streets were called Robin Hood Road, Maid Marian Lane, Friar Tuck Road, right? Robin Hood.
Cool.
And I was like, why? What's the meaning for me? And I realized it was because in my business, I hadn't been using the philosophy of steal from the rich and give to the poor, this thing I told you about, the coaching thing, right? So the purpose is to find the meaning. And in this case, the reason why this week you're having this conversation and with the other lady is because over the next few days, you're not going to have the space to do what you normally do, which is think about what needs to happen.
Yeah.
And you're going to have this high pressure, high stakes, challenging event where you're going to have to talk about something without a plan because you haven't had time to plan it. That's good, because this is going to be one of the first times that you step into something like that feeling unprepared. And I want you to just recognize that the things that you can do to prepare you for that have less to do with thinking about what you're going to do and say and more to do with preparing your body.
Okay.
And when I say preparing the body, I mean the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual body. Then what I want you to do is take a big deep breath and ask your body, where is tense, cold, or shivering right now? If there's a muscle that's twitching, if the lower back is a bit sore because of the sitting position, if your foot twitches, you are asking your body, show me which part of you right now is the most angsty, right?
Yeah, okay.
And then focus your attention on that part of the body. And this is a very active process. This is something I call Gorilla Zen Yoga, and it's part of what I teach people.
Okay.
Rather than using asanas where you do one position, then the next, then the next, Gorilla Zen Yoga is about taking a meditation and making it into a physical process, using your intuition. So for example, I would sit and I would do my brief meditation, sat still. Then when I start to feel the thoughts becoming overwhelming, or maybe I have a thought that's particularly distracting and it really wants to pull me, I ask my body, where's getting tense? Something will twitch, or I'll feel a bit uncomfortable in some part. And then I'll use a combination of massage. I might do some Reiki. I might stretch it. So if it was this finger, for example, if that finger twitched, I would stretch that finger. And I would do it while letting the thought continue. The distracting, troubling thought, I'd let it continue. I still wouldn't engage with it. I still wouldn't let it win, but I would let it be while stretching the finger. By focusing my conscious attention on the stretch, what I can do is I can start to build a connection between this muscle, this part of the body, and that thought form. Now, as you do this practice more, and this takes some time to really develop, but you build a picture of how different types of thought relate to different parts of the body. So for example, the right big toe might be the part of your body that causes the thoughts that say, I don't want to move forward too quickly yet. I need to check. I need to just slow down. And when you think about what the big toe is responsible for, part of its role is going to be stopping you when you're moving too quick. If you're on the edge of a cliff, right? The big toe is going to put pressure down. Yeah. So over time, what happens is that if we get a thought related to I'm moving too quickly, rather than having to think about it, rather than having to write down lists and try and figure it out with the rational mind, you can just stretch the toe, remove the emotional intensity that's coming from that part of the body, and then in the space of that, just take a step and trust that you're taking a step in the right direction. Now, there's an awful lot of mindset stuff that is wrapped up in all of this, but that's the basic process. So for you, practically what you want to be doing is take that sitting still meditation and just make it a bit more active, and just make it a bit more stretch your body. If you can massage the part of the body, and just try to spend 15 minutes if you can, or half an hour if that's possible, just breathing. Maybe put on some relaxing music, just breathing, and every time that mind comes in and starts making you think about things, do the same process. Come back to the body, find where is stressed and tense, give it a stretch, give it a wiggle, give it a massage, give it some love, and then come back to the posture when you feel that it's being worked on. Now, if you do that for 30 minutes, you'll not only clear out any of the tensions that would otherwise make you stutter and stumble during the actual interview, but you'll also create the space so that all that information that you've summarized in the 3 or 4 bullet points, all of that information is able to just flow through you as and when it's needed, without you having to think about it, without you having to plan what's the next step. You're in that space, you're in that zone, and it flows through you, because no part of the body and no part of the mind is introducing doubt.
Yeah. But yeah, that's great. Thank you. Wow. Awesome.
Now, what you may find is that doing that kind of practice becomes addictive, because you realize you remember that you told me how euphoric and ecstatic you felt about those 2 moments that you were in flow, right? Imagine if every single day, before you did everything that was important, including an important conversation with a kid, with your husband, including work, including going to the gym, if before doing all of those things, you took 5 minutes to do something like what I talked about, to put yourself into flow, then that conversation with the husband is going to be less cluttered, and less, there'll be less baggage from the past coming in, and there'll be less anxiety about what he might do coming in, and you're able to just communicate more freely in all of those moments. That will take those 2 experiences of flow and make that an everyday experience, and that's exactly what I do in my programs. So it's been a pleasure to speak with you.
I feel very grateful. Thank you. It's been very amazing call. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. And I look forward to speaking with you and hearing about your successes in the call.
I look forward to telling you about them. All right, David. Great to meet you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.